Hey everyone, hope you guys are enjoying Monster Hunter in whichever fashion you're choosing to play it as. And today I wanted to go over some really interesting news that we got specifically from Capcom, as they are once again reconfirming that they have a still yet unannounced title that will sell millions of copies by March of 2024. All of this information, if you have been watching my channel, is something that Capcom has already iterated once to before, but this time they're actually doubling down on it to the point that it's actually making it really hard to ignore for those players like myself who were not necessarily thinking that this was going to be Monster Hunter Generation 6. It turns out that it seems to be more and more likely that Capcom is indeed set to release this game before March of 2024. So today, not only do I want to go over all of their brand new quotes specifically from Capcom themselves, so they are the direct source. This is not any implication on my end or any sort of leakers by any means, but of course I'll be adding more context to that as well, since there is some extra information that came out afterwards as well. I also want to contextualize everything for those of you who may not necessarily know what has been happening regarding Monster Hunter 6 after Ryoso Sugimoto put out a very interesting quote talking about how Monster Hunter World is not necessarily their plans going forward for Monster Hunter. I made a video about that just a few days ago. I'm going to be leaving a link in the description below for you guys to check that out, since essentially Capcom is making a lot of quotes regarding Monster Hunter without them actually revealing the game themselves, which makes it a little bit frustrating for people like me who want to talk about the game, but also frustrating for those who just want to be able to see what the game is going to look like. But it seems like we're inching ever closer. So first and foremost, this information is coming from their latest fiscal report from July. The report was originally set to be released in August. It just basically made its way out publicly in Japanese. I'm going to be leaving a link in the description below for that. I should be overlaying some of that information on the screen right now. And basically, they were asked a bunch of investor questions because it's a publicly traded company. They're asked a bunch of investor questions in the same way that Nintendo does every single 4 months or so. And there's two specific questions that are directly to their sales, basically where they're hinting at their next major game. But there are several other questions that they addressed afterwards, specifically about the PC and how they're viewing it going forward. So whatever the next game that they're going to release that they're hinting at here, which presumably again is Monster Hunter 6, and we'll get to that in a second, they're basically saying it's going to be coming to PC as well. So the two main questions that are like getting everyone riled up right now in the Monster Hunter community are the following. They were asked by an investor, how do you plan to achieve the sales goal for new titles for this financial year? Capcom's official response is, in the second half of this fiscal year, and again, in the Japanese financial markets, everything starts out in April and it ends in March. So they are currently in the 2023 fiscal year, and it's actually going to end on March 30th of 2024. So it doesn't end on Christmas as you would typically expect, like here in North America. Capcom's response is, in the second half of the fiscal year for 2023, we plan to release Apollo Justice Ace Attorney Trilogy in January, and in addition to a currently unannounced major title. Moreover, we plan to boost the sales of figures of new titles for the first half of this fiscal year to achieve the target. So yes, they have Apollo Justice, a remake of, I believe, the 3DS games, which we know about. They've showcased it plenty of already. They're talking about boosting their sales for the games that they originally released in 2023. But they're also talking about this additional currently unannounced major title. Now, a lot of people will simply default back to, well, it's clearly Dragon's Dogma. Dragon's Dogma is about to come out. The Dragon's Dogma 2 game is right around the corner. Well, they still haven't put out a release date for that, and we know that's not going to be launching until the summer. So this is after their fiscal year 2023. So basically, Dragon's Dogma is a 2024 fiscal year game for them. So we're not talking about Dragon's Dogma. Although, of course, once again, reiterating that it's an unannounced game, which again, Monster Hunter falls into that category. The second answer is a little bit more interesting, though, in their second question. How do you think the sales goal of 45 million copies of console titles, taking into account that the first half of this fiscal year, wouldn't it be difficult to achieve? They're referencing the fact that Resident Evil 4 remake didn't do as crazy as they thought it would. Sunbreak on the other consoles, when it launched, it didn't really do crazy numbers on PlayStation or Xbox as they would have hoped. So obviously, their Street Fighter 6 also also did well, but not as great as they were hoping for it to do as well. So a lot of things are not necessarily stacking up in Capcom's favor as of right now, which is why you see the investor question being a little bit more negative. And Capcom's response is basically, we're planning a major title in the second half of this fiscal year. Again, that would be September 2023 to March of 2024. Additionally, we're originally planned to achieve the goal of mainly by focusing on sale events in the second half of this fiscal year to boost the sales figures of our catalog titles. So once again, they're going to boost sales for games that they already have out, and of course Apollo Justice, which they mentioned before, but they are banking extremely heavily on this next game that they currently don't have announced as of yet. So we have already discarded Dragon's Dogma 2. We know that Capcom's big IP franchises are nothing but a handful. Street Fighter, Resident Evil, if you want to consider Mega Man in that regard, you can. Devil May Cry, and of course Monster Hunter. Street Fighter 6 just came out. That game is not necessarily going to be, the game that they're talking about. They're certainly not about to release Street Fighter 7. I mean, they're still putting out DLC for the first season of Street Fighter 6, so that can get discarded. Resident Evil 4 Remake just came out. They might do DLC for that. They usually do, but we don't necessarily know if they're going to do that. And we know that Resident Evil 9, once again, based on Capcom's very own words, this is a 2025 game. Not even a 2024 game. Resident Evil 9 will be skipping entirely next year. It most likely gets revealed next year, but it will most likely be a 2025 game based on their previous quotes. We know Devil May Cry could potentially get a remake. There's been some rumors about that, but it's still multi-million game. Like their sales of Monster Hunter, Devil May Cry, probably not realistic, but you never really know unless they actually reveal Devil May Cry 6. Then maybe they could get closer to that. And then, of course, you have Mega Man, which there's been plenty of rumors already about the next mainline Mega Man game releasing. But to put sales expectations, again, of Monster Hunter to Mega Man is a little bit not realistic. And Capcom should probably already know that. So the only, of course, by process of elimination, the only main profile game that they could potentially release is, of course, the next Monster Hunter game. A lot of people have suggested maybe a remake of some sort, maybe a Monster Hunter 1 remake or something along those lines, but it seems unlikely based on some of the things that I've already covered in this channel. If you're interested in checking as to why they probably wouldn't remake Monster Hunter 1, well, I've made a video on that, and I think I put out a 3-video series on that, so I think I've talked enough about all of that as well. In their fiscal reports, though, and I'm going to leave a link in the description below for the Reddit thread as well, where they actually posted more of the English version of those questions, because all of these are originally in Japanese, so they have been translated by users. They are basically asking Capcom about how their PC market trends seem to be going forward. And in there, they're asked, how do you think of the PC market? Capcom responds, by the look of the recent tendency, PC game market is consistently growing, at the ratio of PC sales for console titles continue to grow. They're also asked that in terms of PC titles, how do you think of the Steam Deck? Capcom mentions that compared to the number of PCs worldwide, its sales figures remained limited, which is of course a given. And it didn't have much of an influence. We will continue to adjust our prices to boost the revenue worldwide. Again, Steam Deck is just nothing but a PC. That's how they're viewing it. A lot of people try to make it seem like it's going to be a Switch or something like that. It's a PC. All of these PC handhelds are nothing but PCs at the end of the day. They're treated as such. And these big publishers who just want to, basically cater to as many audiences as possible, the Steam Deck is not going to be something that they're going to be really all that focused on, to the extent that I just recently covered maybe a week ago or so by now, the fact that they just put out a patch and they've got Steam Deck verified for Monster Hunter World and Iceborne. So it took them almost a year or two, however long the Steam Deck's been out, almost a year and a half by now, I think. It took them almost a year and a half for them to verify 2 of their biggest games on that little handheld. So at the end of the day, they don't really pay that much of attention to it, and their very own words describe it as much. Lastly, of course, they don't really say much when it comes to what you would actually want them to talk about, which they're asked, do you have anything to share about new titles for the 20th anniversary of the Monster Hunter franchise? And they said no. So the fact that they're not talking about it is no different than Ryosu Sugimoto's quote in their most recent interview, which again, link in the description below if you guys checked it out, where he's not talking about anything. He's not revealing anything, but he's teasing new monsters. He's teasing more ideas for the franchise going forward. And that big quote where he basically said that Monster Hunter World is not the staple for the franchise going forward. You shouldn't expect the next mainline game, Monster Hunter Generation 6, to be Monster Hunter World 2. I know a lot of people want it to be that. It doesn't seem likely that's going to be the thing. And if they're so very confident that they're going to be releasing something in March of 2024 and most likely end up revealing it heading into the Game Awards, presumably like I talked about in one of my most recent videos, if that is their plans, then they need to have something major to showcase in that presentation or that trailer that they're going to showcase and blow everybody away with something. Because otherwise, they're not going to do their typical format of like they reveal a game and then they release it 10 months from then. You know, they're going to have 3 months to be able to reveal it in December and release it in March. And Capcom doesn't necessarily do that all that much, if ever. Especially when it comes to Monster Hunter. They like to tease things ahead of time and tease and tease and tease. So it's going to be a change for the franchise going forward one way or another, whether it is just through marketing or what the game is going to be ultimately about. But I cannot wait to see what they do. So link in the description below for everything that I've talked about. Again, these are Capcom's very own words. They're not some mistranslations or anything along those lines or even like speculations. This is what Capcom is saying. So if you don't believe them, I don't know who you're going to believe. If you're brand new to my channel, though, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up. And as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.